Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for joining me today, and we're going to be discussing some new events that are coming up for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia this week, as well as the characters that are featured within them. Now, I'm kind of still feeling my way around this weekly format when it comes to doing my videos for Opera Omnia, and I'm still trying to find things that I want to do to come away from mobile gaming a little bit, because honestly, I mean, I released a statement on Twitter not too long ago about my current situation and the way that things are, so feel free to go and look for that if you would like to. But I'm kind of still not fully there yet when it comes to recovering from the way that things have been. So I'm, still figuring out how I want my content to go. So if you have any comments or if you have any feedback on things that you would like me to do that are different from what I currently do, then by all means feel free to leave comments below, things like that. But I'm also going to try and discuss not just the characters that are involved. I don't want to do a should you pull video as such. That's not what I'm here to do necessarily. I want to do things a little differently. So I'm actually going to talk about the events themselves as well as the characters, but I'm not going to spend quite as much time on the characters themselves. Don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, including the aforementioned Twitter and my Twitch account and things like that. To be honest with everybody, I've actually been kind of shying away from social media a little bit, because while I love making videos and I love making content, I find myself quite frightened of kind of the aftermath of it all. So I haven't been on Discord all that much. I find that I'm coming away from Discord and things like that recently. So if you're curious as to why I've been shy on social media or I've not talked as much recently, that'll be why. As I say on Twitter, I released a statement as to what was going on with me, and you can have a look at that. Don't forget to check out my Patreon page if you would like to support the channel further, and as I stated in my Patreon page, I will give a shout out to a random patron every time I release a video, and that person today is going to be Sung Su. So thank you very much for your support. And then, obviously, don't forget to check out DissidiaDB.com, because it's the website I use most frequently for all of my information regarding characters and, where they come from and how they do what they do, things like that. And, of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators for Dissidia Opera Omnia, because there's lots of us, and everyone appreciates your likes and your subscribes and all that good stuff. So we don't actually have too much coming out this week for Dissidia in terms of events. However, what we do have is a new summon board coming out, and that's going to be Pandemonium. And it's going to arrive with 6 Super Synergy characters, so if you've done a summon board before, you'll know exactly what to expect here. Those characters are going to be Penelo, Edge, Vivi, Lion, Ishtola, and Freya. And then, as you can see here on my right hand side, we've got the list of abilities that you can get from Pandemonium, and those abilities, of the ones that are selectable here, I think the most valuable ones are going to be Pandemonium Attack Up, Pandemonium Chase HP Damage Up, and probably Pandemonium Boost Guard Up. It's because the trouble with a lot of these summons is that their abilities trigger when you're at less than a certain threshold of health, as opposed to someone like Ifrit, where you get some attack and things like that, or Brothers, where you just get some max bravery. Pandemonium's buffs aren't that great, but in all fairness, you'll want to consider the wind damage up that you can deal with, the third ability there, wind power up. If you're using characters like Shantotto or Sabin or Maria, there's a few characters, or Fujin, because when Fujin gets her EX, she's actually really quite good. There's some characters there that you'll want to consider using that ability for instead, and for those characters, I probably dodge the chase damage, which sounds really odd, but a lot of those characters aren't reliant on chase damage anyway. With regards to the farming aspect of it, I've explained my process when it comes to farming a summon board before. I normally take a Super Synergy character, a strong character, and a weak character, along with a friend character that is usually delay heavy. Aranea will clearly be perfect for this kind of thing, or Quistis, or somebody like that, where you can just blitz the boss without it ever taking a turn, which is really quite good. You want to be able to get crack two runs of a Pandemonium out with a weaker character, which is the character that you'll switch out for the friend unit, and then you'll bring in the friend unit, blitz Pandemonium twice, then switch the weak character out, and then your strong character can continue to get more points over the course of while you're switching these weak characters in and out, and then finish the summon boards completely for the character that you want to do and get the full 6,500 points, which I believe takes 7 runs now, as opposed to the 9 it used to take, or possibly even more than that. And then we get 150 points now instead of 100 points when it comes to a summon board, so that's going to be a huge deal. And you obviously have the wild points as well, so it means that the slog isn't quite as bad as it once was, which, honestly, when you've got 6 full summon boards to farm per character, I should hope not. But the Chaos event itself is actually very interesting, because what Pandemonium does is brings up, after it uses its sort of recharging attack, it brings up 2 tornadoes, which you can't damage. You can't do HP damage to them. You can break them and you can do bravery damage to them, but you can't actually hurt them. And what they do is they'll continually drain your health, your HP, at the beginning of every single one of your turns. So realistically, what you want to do is bring somebody that has a very good healing effect, like a really strong HP regen, or, you know, just a good health recovery ability. So Y'shtola being a Y'shtola being a super synergy character, this was an absolute godsend, because A, she has delay on her abilities, which means that farming is going to be easier, and B, she's also a healer, and a really strong one at that, with delay capabilities against a solo boss for the Chaos version of the event. So she's just going to be an absolute godsend. However, the characters that come on the banners, as I'll talk to you about in a moment, are also very strong, so they're some of the characters that you're going to want to consider. Although I have seen a team of relatively old characters, actually, take out the Pandemonium Chaos event in Japan when it first came out, without Pandemonium ever getting a turn or ever getting to summon the tornadoes in the first place, which was Cloud, Y'shtola, and Tifa. So if that's a team that you'd like me to run for that particular event so that I can show it to you on Friday when I put up my sort of Chaos runs and things like that, then let me know in the comments below. Or if there's a character that you'd like to see in particular, then showcase for that kind of event, then let me know in the comments below. There are only 2 banners that are new that are coming about this week, and only one of them you realistically have to worry about, because there's 2 banners coming with Pandemonium. And Dimensions End 8 is actually being released on the same day, and all of this is coming out on Wednesday, which is the 11th. And the first banner is going to have Edge EX, Penelo EX, and Y'shtola without her EX, upsettingly, because if you haven't got Y'shtola EX already, she is still an absolutely phenomenal character. But both of those characters, we'll have a little take at, have a look at their EX, what it does. Penelo gets a rework. It's a phenomenal rework as well, so we'll have a look at those in a moment. And then the other banner is going to be Vivi, Lion, both with their EXs but not realizations, and then Freya as well, because Freya still doesn't have her EX. She's still a relatively good character, but this banner in particular isn't going to really help you all that much. Any resources that you get from Pandemonium, and there's a lot to gain, should really be going into Penelo and Edge's banner. Lion's nice. I've had Lion since her EX first came out, and I actually really like the character because her animations are super snappy, really fast. If you're farming, she's brilliant. If you don't have somebody like Yuna, for example, and when you're farming Pandemonium, if you've got Lion, then, you know, great. You've got a lot of some really fast animations to help get the farm done quicker. But realistically, at this point, you're not going to be taking anyone that doesn't have a realization into a Chaos event. So realistically, this banner you can kind of just leave to one side. Penelo and Edge's banner, however, is phenomenal, and I'll go into a little bit of detail as to why. Now, Edge is a unique little beast, and he's got a slight rework, nothing too like groundbreaking when it comes to the rework. His shock gets an additional hit, and it has a bit of brave overflow on it, and his smokescreen, well, I say it's not a small overhaul or anything. He gets an HP plus attack, which is always going to be really useful. He gets, it's thunder based, and a lot of his kit is thunder based. He doesn't actually have Thunder in Peril though. He has Thunder Enchant to the party, which he gets from his EX, which I'll get to in a second. But if you can pair him up with somebody with Thunder in Peril, or somebody like Shantotto who does it to everything, then your damage output is going to be really good. However, Edge's damage, while it's actually really good, is not the primary reason you use him. He's actually a bit of a tank. And why he is a bit of a tank is because of his ability Smokescreen. Now, Smokescreen raises his evasion to 100% for 1 turn, 2 turns if you've got everything on him, and he actually locks everyone to him for that turn as well. So it means that for a turn, nothing's going to hit you unless it's hitting your entire party, and that's actually very valuable. However, if we look at Murasame, which is his EX weapon, and gives him Blitz Mirage, he gets a group brave attack, single target HP attack, multiple target HP attack if you've realised it. It also grants him a buff called Mirage. Now, Mirage has a brave regen effect and also grants evasion to the entire party. And that's actually really quite strong. He also gets, with his realization, so that it's splash damage based. The damage is 100% to the main target, but it's 50% splash damage to the others, which is, in my opinion, better than it being spread evenly because the total damage output is higher. And then you also get to start with Eblan's teachings, which means he gets his Brave and HP attack plus off the bat. He doesn't have to do anything to get that. His 1 out of 3 is similar to many characters. 1 out of 3s, it's just a stat boost, but that stat boost does matter, in a lot of ways. And Blitz Mirage also has the ability to extend his Eblan's teachings duration, because you don't actually get that many uses of Smokescreen. You get loads of uses of shock, because you actually get a use of shock back after you use Blitz Mirage, which extends his longevity immensely, as we've seen with many other characters do a similar thing like Ishtola. And then with 3 out of 3, it does much more damage, it's got more Brave Overflow, and his Eblan's teaching, his abilities to have his Brave HP attack plus go to ++, which obviously just makes him that much stronger. It means that he's got Brave Overflow on his HP ++. His sphere is also very interesting as well. It increases bravery by 40% of initial bravery after dodging an attack. This is really good for characters like Keita when she gets her EX. So if you're a big fan of Keita and you want the hashtag justice for Keita, then consider saving this sphere for her. Because anyone who has the kind of dodge counter mechanics, kind of like 8 or, as I say, Keita, this is a sphere that you might want to consider for them. And then looking at his level 65 ability as well, he also gets Thunderburst, which is quite simply a 2-hit thunder attack, a Brave HP attack similar to Cloud, and it raises his attack slightly for 1 turn. If you get his passive for it, then he gets slightly more attack, and if you get his Bloomstone, he gets another use of it. And I actually really value these kind of actual attacks when it comes to a Crystal 65 attack, because I think they're actually just generally very handy to have. So if you get Edge, then you're going to want a 3 out of 3 him straight away, because it's like he's very, very strong. He's got a very unique niche in his dodge mechanics, and honestly, I think he's a really strong character. But ultimately, he's actually the consolation prize of this banner. So if you only have enough ingots for one character, then you might want to hold off on Edge. Now, Penelo is a different beast entirely. Penelo gets some amazing things from her rework and her EX and the realization for it. Now, before now, she was kind of lackluster, and honestly, this goes to show what a rework and a realization, or just an EX, can do for a character. So the rework has pretty much completely overhauled Great Haste and Regen Waltz, so that you get HP plus attacks and Bravery plus attacks based on which one you use. The best way to describe how this works is kind of like Ignis. When you use one of these attacks, you build up a stack of a dance sort of mechanic. So she's kind of really playing into her dancer sort of heritage in FF12 really well, because you get Rumba Step when you use Great Haste, and you get Waltz Step when you use Regen Waltz, but you only get 1 stack of it per use. However, once you have those stacks, they don't leave, and the only thing they actually do at max stacks is enhance her Brave HP attack. It doesn't actually affect the stat generation buffs or anything like that within the buff itself. And when you change from one to the other, you don't actually lose the stacks that you had before, so you can switch between the 2 stances in order to get either more offensive stats in the case of Rumba Step or more defensive stats in the case of Waltz Step. So what this means, and the other thing to actually bear in mind before I continue, is that Great Haste has low action delay. So you can use it as a way to build up your EX counter if you need to, and Waltz Step, Regen Waltz, doesn't. So if you need to keep your bravery for an enemy turn, you can use with a Regen Waltz, or if you're wanting to use the bravery straight away, you can use Great Haste. And it's all about kind of increasing speed of not only herself, but her party members as well. She brings some really nice auras to the table, and I will actually point out that Edge actually has a couple of smaller auras, but he's not a completely selfish damage dealer either, so I, again, do actually really like Edge and would like to pick him up as well. But Penelo brings HP regen, Brave regen, basically everything you need for Pandemonium, because as I said, if his tornadoes are up, you're taking HP damage literally every turn, so HP regen is going to be extremely valuable. And then you've got loads of just nice stats that you get from it. So like I said, you get initial bravery, attack, and speed for her, and then raising the party's attack, and then you get the party HP regen and brave regen from the regen waltz, and then the brave attack plus and HP attack plus, or plus plus if you're at max stacks for each ability, is actually kind of similar to Ignis. So if you've used Ignis, then you'll know that depending on which stance you use, you get different effects from your brave or HP attack pluses. So if your rumba step is active, then it's more offensive. You're dealing brave hits to the opponent, you're gaining bravery afterwards, or you're not gaining bravery afterwards like you would with the waltz step, but you're doing damage to the opponent. So it's a little bit of brave shaving, it's giving Penelo the ability to actually, you know, take bravery away from your opponent. However, with the waltz step, you instead gain bravery and then attack, or you get bravery based on, or you're giving it to the party as well. So depending on which, she's very malleable, she's very versatile, she can give you whatever you need at any given time, especially given the fact that a lot of her abilities have no action delay. So it means that you can kind of switch back into the step you need to be in order for you to cater to whichever situation you happen to be in at the time. And then with her EX, now we can look at that, and honestly, her EX is fantastic. Like, straight up fantastic. Basically, what her EX does is she doesn't actually deal damage using her own bravery. She only deals damage using the bravery that she inflicts during the attack. And what that means is that you get an HP attack that it can't break the target, and this is an important thing. But this is, again, it's not a bad thing, because depending on which character you're using, so say you're using somebody like Lightning or Aranea, somebody like that, where you want to break the opponent so that you can get the free turn. Jekt, for example, would be another one. Then not being able to break the target is a good thing. But the main thing when it comes to Penelo's EX attack is that it doesn't take her bravery away to use it, and it's instant. So she actually essentially gets 2 attacks in one turn. So she uses Intercession, she takes all this bravery off the opponent, makes it so that they go down to 0, and then hits them, but she doesn't lose her bravery. At that point, you can go, oh, well, my opponent's got another turn here. Maybe I won't do anything. I'll just regen waltz, make sure everybody's bravery is up, and then that way I'm safe. Or I want to go all in on the offensive, use Great Haste to get my EX up. It's also a fast recast rate, and this is extremely useful to her. Get the charge done, and then use Intercession, smack them about the head, and then use another HP attack straight after it. In all honesty, some of the characters that work really well with Penelo, like you might want to look into characters like Charlotta again, because Charlotta using Crystal Generation after Penelo is absolutely backbreaking, because Penelo doesn't have to use her bravery if she doesn't want to in order to deal damage. So those two things together actually pair up very, very well, and the speed buffs from Penelo make it so that it's harder for them to get another turn. Honestly, the idea of Penelo and Aranea together is absolutely terrifying. She does have a drawback, though. The main drawback of Penelo is that she has a lot of sort of unframed buffs. I'll come to her realization in a moment as well, but she has a lot of unframed buffs, which means that stuff might start nudging each other off, and you have to be careful of that. So don't pair her up with characters that are too heavy on buffing themselves with various things. If they've got a singular framed buff or something like that, or a buff that's not within the 6 slots, so somebody like Yuri or Kryl, then that's fine, and you don't have to worry too much about it. Or if they have similar buffs, then that's okay. So like even Ishtola and Penelo together work very well, and work very well for the Pandemonium event. So you might want to pair those two together for that. But just be mindful of pushing buffs off of your characters. So when you get the realization, and this is one of the nice things about Penelo as well, is you don't actually have to like go all in when it comes to the ingots. I still would. I think she's good enough that she's worth it, because she like can then heal or with her EX as well, but she gets more stats, things like that. But when she uses Intercession, she actually increases the stacks of her Rumba Step or Waltz and Waltz Step by 1, whichever one is active. So it means that you're not necessarily having to burn through all your skills to get to the 3 stacks, and that's really nice. And then with the 1 out of 3, you have not the ability to not have to consume your ability for the first turn, and she gets Brave Overflow on all of her abilities, which is incredible. And then it's actually the second ingot realization that kind of makes it so that she's just getting a stat buff, which is still good. But the third one I think is really nice, just because being able to heal, being able to do more damage, and just maxing out her stats as much as possible, because she is a character I plan to use a lot. I think that it's well worth it. And then her sphere is, once per turn, after granting a buff, raise every party member's bravery by 20% of their initial bravery. This is really nice as well, because Penelo does buff quite a lot. I think that it's, honestly, it's not my favourite sphere in the world. It's decent, because if you've got a character that's going to be buffing regardless of what she's doing, so for example Aiko or Penelo or Ishtola, things like that, or no, Ishtola doesn't buff actually, excuse that, she does, max bravery. Tripping over my own words here, I'm forgetting what characters do. But the point being is that, like, if you've got a character that's a support that's constantly sort of applying buffs, reapplying buffs, making sure that they've always got something, I think that it's really important to kind of look at this sphere at the very least. And if you get it, it's not one I would go out of my way for, but the character is so good, you're probably just going to get it anyway. Now, before we end this video, we're going to have a quick little look at Dimensions End 8 and the characters that you can expect to see within that event. Now, Dimensions End 8 is built around the Enchant Imperil mechanic. So each of the Dimensions End missions tend to have a particular mechanic in mind. And this one, as a, the theme for this month generally has a theme around using characters that can enchant the party with a certain element and then make it so that the opponent is weak to it. So characters that you can expect to see within this event are going to be characters that can do that primarily. So characters like Lulu are going to be very, very popular within this particular event. You've got characters like Onion Knight who have the Blizzard Imperil enchant. You've got Yuri who has the Holy Imperil enchant. If you compare Edge with another character that can Imperil Thunder, then you have that as an option for you. But equally, not all of them are necessarily designed just to do it that way. You can actually go with it with a more brute force approach, but it will take characters that you have probably already used. So Warrior of Light is a good option for this particular one because he's good in everything. Zac is exactly the same. They're tank-based characters that can just take a beating. They ward characters or enemies away from your other characters, and they'll do really well that way. Penelo is obviously going to be very strong in this particular event, and in fact, this is probably the best Dimensions End to use Penelo in, because looking at data compiled of sort of clears for the Japanese runs of the game of various different Dimensions End or Far End of Dimensions as it's called over there, clears, they use Penelo more in this than anything later. So if you're going to use Penelo, I will probably use Penelo in this particular event, so that's something to bear in mind. And then as I will probably use Yuri as well, because his gravity based attacks are really strong. He has the Enchant Imperil, even if it is only for himself, but Penelo doesn't do damage through dealing brave damage anyway, so Yuri kind of has that role covered. And then third characters you could use, there's loads of characters that would work well, like I could say Edge works fairly well, Aiko you could even use for this. Paladin Cecil is coming in a little while later, but if you're happy to wait, then he has the Holy Imperil and Enchant as well, so you could use him. Papalimo, if you're willing to wait a week, he has a very similar thing. He actually does a lot of damage, so you might want to consider waiting for him. Lulu is probably the most popular choice, just because she has the support role, she has decent damage, she has Imperil and Enchant more frequently than any other character, even if it is only for the one element. Shantotto and Kam'lanaut you could use together. I've seen some clears use Shantotto and Kam'lanaut. Even though Kam'lanaut isn't that great, and I personally wouldn't invest the ingots into him, you could use him. Shantotto is, however, very strong. You also have, I mean, there's some players have used Gao, some players have used Jekt, but I believe that if you're going to use Jekt, you realistically want to have Lulu as well, or at least Shantotto. People have used certain characters characters like Kieran don't really see play in any sort of Dimensions End as they come out. Like, I've talked about this when it came to my video at the beginning of the month, but Kieran doesn't really get used in any Dimensions End, and honestly, if I give you any piece of advice, is that you should, it's something I actually plan to make a video on, is some sort of like tips generally when it comes to Opera Omnia. But if you're going to be pulling for characters, bear in mind when you think you're going to use that character, particularly in Dimensions End, and whether you have the resources to give them to make it so they can compete in that. That's how pulling strategy is for me currently. So the reason I haven't made like a massive future pulls video right now is because I don't know what resources are going to look like from this point onwards. So like, I mean, they may start throwing more at us, they might not, but bearing in mind how you're going to use these characters in the hardest content possible, which is Dimensions End currently, and how you plan to make it so that they are viable for that content is the way that you should be planning your pulls. So that's going to be all for this video. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. The formatting is a little bit different. I wanted to touch more on the strategies behind playing the game rather than the gacha mentality behind it. Being general, if you ask me, should you pull on anything, then yeah, Edge and Penelo are not the other one. This is a nice and easy one. I do think that both of those characters are very strong, and you should go for them because you will probably use them both in endgame content, and Penelo in particular. Edge less so, but I do think Edge is very quirky and very cool. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of guidance on Pandemonium farming and Pandemonium's Chaos event as well, so that hopefully people don't struggle with that, and given a couple of examples of characters you can use for that. And similarly for Dimensions End 8, I'm going to be uploading obviously my clear for that on Friday, hopefully, provided I can actually do it. And then obviously Pandemonium Chaos as well. So thank you very much for joining me. Do check out all of my social media in the description box below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click that little bell for notifications. Thank you very much everybody, and I'll see you soon.